That's a good
Okay.
one.
We'll call to order the December 5th, 2011 workshop meeting of the Community District 99 Board of Education. Just to acknowledge we have a TV camera. This is a historical first for our district. So we'll see how things go tonight. We'll start by calling the roll. Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Okay, now we stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is a board workshop. The first item on our agenda is 2011-2012 goals, and I think we have the new PowerPoint on that. With that, I turn the agenda over to Dr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. White. As the board remembers from our previous two meetings, or 2 meetings ago, we began the discussion about developing goals for the 2011-2012 school year and 2012-2013 school year based on our strategic plan. This is the first time we have had a strategic plan for which to base our goals. We went through the strategic plan document at the time in detail. In fact, we spent several hours going through it at the November workshop. There were some questions. The board offered some ideas, and some members of the board wanted clarification. And so we agreed to meet again this month before developing goals for approval. I would like to highlight some of the changes we have made in the document that you have before you. One, we've gone through and identified with, it's sort of a purple color, those specific tasks that we would offer or recommend to the board to be included in this year's goals. And additionally, we've also made some changes in how, in our method of measurement. And if you look at the very top, you can see a legend, and that legend is included at the bottom of every page as well, that really talks about the level at which we are going to measure the goals in each different phase. For example, a goal might be in the exploration phase. And that means is we have an idea or a concept. We are going to study that concept to discern its applicability to District 99 and what we would need to do in District 99 in order to make that goal a reality. And so if our measurement is, or if our code is E for exploration, that means that we're going to evaluate this concept, and the actual measurement of it is we will make a report to the board at the end of the year about the feasibility of going forward. And it's possible that the report could be we need more study. It's possible the report could be we don't recommend implementing this concept, or it's possible it could be we would like to go into the developmental phase the following year. The developmental phase, or D, means there has been a commitment to that task, and our work then is not exploratory but is actually coming up with a strategy for implementation, whatever that would incur. That may be training, that may be a budget, that may mean bringing in experts. There's a variety of things that we may have to do in the developmental phase, but that would be about implementing the actual goal, actual implementation of the goal in the system. Then, of course, implementation, and with implementation, one of the things we're going to include is some sort of criteria to measure the effectiveness of the implementation. Ongoing means it's something that would be continuous, that we would do every year. And of course, completion means the task is complete. We don't have to work on it again. It should be in place. It's something we'll count on in the future. It goes from being a goal to basically being how we do business. So with those explanations, I'd like to go back through the plan, and again with individual people who have the most responsibility for a given area, reviewing their recommendations. And as we understand, we are in fact tasked with developing goals for both this year and next year. To an extent, we're not going to be able to be as clear about goals for next year because some of them are based on the outcomes of goals this year, but not all of them. So we would be able to give the board a sense of what we recommend the goal should be for 2012, 2013, but we aren't going to be as definitive as we are for this year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. The first area is curriculum instruction and assessment. Dr. Minor.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. As noted previously, within 1.1, for the focus of this year, we would work to integrate the implementation of Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. Those are interventions for students that we can reduce the numbers of D's and F's for those students up to a benchmark of at least 90% of our students earning semester grades of A's, B's, and C's. That is a focus not only for this year, but it will be an ongoing focus because we want to reduce the number of those students that are having difficulty and failures. Within the next point, it's marked as exploratory, but the next piece has projections for potentially the 12-13 year in terms of helping those students in the middle who are underserved. So we're doing exploratory currently with an existing program, investigating to what degree that this might be a fit for the district, and then that would be something that we would potentially put in place for the 12-13 school year. With regard to 1.2, again, this is a focus for this year, but it is an ongoing focus for the district in terms of advancing the numbers in advanced placement and honors courses to increase the numbers of students who are both participating as well as experiencing success. And this is with regard especially to our subgroups, so having that baseline data to make sure all students have that access to the rigorous curriculum. It is also connected with a reduction in A's, B's, and C's, reduction in D's and F's, but also advancing our rigor in our curriculum. With regard to 1.3, again, this is one of the READ 180 program implementation is an intervention for students in literacy. So by checking to see the degree to which students are advancing at least 2 grade levels, not only will it promote their success in their learning, but again, provide them with opportunities to advance into more rigorous curriculum. Hopefully you're hearing a theme with regard to curriculum instruction and assessment. Again, that focuses this year, as well as 1.3, which is an audit of our literacy program, to see to what degree our investment in the literacy strategies are paying off. The result of that will be a report that will be presented March 1st. So we'll have an opportunity to see what's working, what we need to continue to invest in, and how we can continue to advance literacy for students, which leads to their academic success.
1.3C is the audit of our co-teaching model. We've had co-teaching in the district for quite some time. And our goal with the audit is to discover whether or not our co-teaching model is successful, and also what other resources might we need in the future to continue with our co-teaching model, which may potentially have FTE implications as well. The recommendation that we would do would be an audit, and the audit would be completed by March. Report to the board as well, and it is exploratory. And from that information, we would decide what we need to do for the upcoming school year. 1.3D, investigating the outcome of diagonally shifting students, 200 level to 300 level courses. Through that, we would look at trend data and the numbers of students diagonally shifted, and longitudinal growth data and gains in reading and math as well. And we would also look at and collect historical and current data needed to investigate student academic process, and also review the data with respective people in the different buildings that are responsible for that. We would also, at that time, come with the board to decide whether or not we need to move forward and how successful that is. It works in correlation with our audit of the co-teaching model as well.
With regard to 1.4, consistent focus with our Common Core integration. This is a curricular focus. This is related to the national standards. It's noted as D for the next 3 years. honors because the Common Core is being implemented in phases with English language arts and mathematics. And they look to roll out the science and social studies they're still working on. So this is something we need to be on top of. We will continue to focus on this consistently for the next 3 years until we have the complete rollout of the Common Core. And then with regard to that, we're also investigating, beginning this year, the curricular initiatives related to the STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics initiatives. We're going to investigate and do an exploratory of what makes sense for STEM for District 99. There are many STEM models out there. There are many different pathways we could take. But again, we want to see how STEM integrates without compromising the rigor of our courses, which is, again, that common theme that you hear all the way through this part of the presentation.
In facilities, Mr. Schock?
Short-term goal 2.1 is to continue with the phased implementation of the master site plan. We're completing phase 1 of tier 1 right now, and we're deep into design, development, and construction documents for bidding purposes for phase 2 next year. Phase 1 and phase 2 of tier 1 are those items that were approved by the Board of Education from a funding standpoint. And we had to break that into 2 phases because of the amount of work that there was to do. 2.1B is accelerate tier 2 subject to board approval. Later on tonight, we'll give a presentation of some modifications that the administration is recommending tier 1 phase 2. Some of that work modifications are coming out of tier 2, and some are other items that as we consider the construction phase. So we'll talk about that a little later in the evening. 2.3B, we want to revise the existing long-range plan for maintenance of our facilities and expand it to include energy management and energy conservation, and sustainable construction. Those have been standards that we've been using for a number of years within the realm of design of our many projects that we do. And we have an energy management team that considers those as standards whenever we're working on a project. And it is a board policy. But within our long-range plan, it's really not a category that pushes us into looking into the future for what we can do. So while we're doing it, it's something that needs to be identified and put into that long-range plan. That's it for facilities.
Technology, Mr. Rousseau?
The 2 short-term goals that are in the technology area, the first one deals with the development of a plan. Previously, for many years, we've developed state tech plans. They're pretty narrow in focus that deal with specific NCLB goals. Through the strategic planning process, it became evident that there were a lot of technology items which came to be. A lot of them dealt with connectivity and wireless access and what ultimately are we going to do with those tools. The infrastructure upgrades we made this summer, the wireless access we have in place now actually put us a long way ahead in what we would have developed a plan for and what that plan would have said. So the 2 items that show under 3.1, A and B, reflect the pilot program that we're embarking on right now to look at mobile technologies for teachers, leading to a plan by the end of this year to put mobile technology in every teacher's hand at the beginning of next year. And then actually the 3.1C and the other short-term goal, the exploration of the NET standards, the National Educational Technology Standards for students, teachers, and administrators. Those, in my mind, kind of go hand in hand. That'll give us a chance to explore the net standards a little bit this year, and as we develop a plan really around our goals and needs to look not only at the technology, the infrastructure, those parts, to take a closer look at with the various digital tools and resources that are out there right now, how do we change what we do really that takes best advantage of those tools, allowing us to do something different with the tools that we couldn't have done with them otherwise.
Okay, resources, personnel, staff development, and finances. Dr. Smith?
Mr. Whitehead, do you want to start with the first one?
Sure, I will. First goal, 4.1A, goes along with 4.1, expanding our efforts to attract, hire, and retain diverse faculty and staff. 4.1A reads, identify how we're recruiting and how we're addressing diversity in recruiting, retaining, and mentoring minority faculty members. Dr. Smith and I have taken the lead on this, established a committee of teachers and staff members within the district to look at how we're attracting minority candidates and also retaining them here in the district. We'll start that this school year as we look into the upcoming recruiting season. Dr. Smith and I have already started with a collaborative relationship with local colleges and universities to work with them and their student populations that would be going into education, or those that are already education majors, ways in which we could partner with them to be able to kind of tap them for resources and potential candidates for the future. That phase of our goal and project will be taking place this year. It will be completed, and it will be ongoing for the 12-13, 13-14 school years as well.
And then in collaboration with Dr. Miner, and along with the district's mentoring committee, we're reviewing our current mentoring program and measuring ourselves and our current program against standards as they've changed with ideal mentoring programs. So we'll look to the state recommendations for mentoring programs and assess and audit our own program and see where it can be strengthened as well. In Illinois, when our new teachers are participating in a state-approved mentoring program, a 2-year program, then that helps them through their first teacher recertification program. So on top of helping them acclimate to District 99, it helps them with their recertification, which can be a pretty overwhelming process as you go through it. So it has multiple purposes. So, and Dr. Miner came with experiences in that area, and I look forward to working with her. The other goal areas in 4.2 are related to Senate Bill 7, Senate Bill 315, and all the changes related to teacher evaluation and administrator evaluation. So the timelines vary depending on what the legislation has set forth for us timeline-wise. So they'll all end up tying into one another as we move forward. 4.3. National Board.
With the National Board Cert and the Masters in Content cohort, that is anticipated to begin exploratory for next year. Again, if we're speaking for rigor for students, this is a way to enhance rigor for teachers' professional development. So with regard to National Board certification, it allows for a 10-year certification for teachers. It is incredibly rigorous, and it allows them to become the master teachers that we would expect. As far as the Masters in Content cohort, that allows teachers to gain more experience within the content area. So if we're looking for more rigorous offerings for AP and honors, it gives the teachers the background knowledge to delve down and really get into what does it mean to think like a mathematician, like a writer, like a social scientist, like a historian. So those are two supportive pieces, but not until 12-13 will we begin to investigate those.
I think
4.4. 4.4 with the budget and the forecasting model. It's really something that we've always done, but we feel it's an important part of the message that we have in the strategic plan, the understanding. The two areas, 4.4A and B, are actually very interrelated. The budget and the forecast are really two things. And if you look at the prior draft that we had of this, they were flipped. Forecast was first, and then the budget was second. But in terms of sequencing of what actually occurs first in the fiscal year, the budget is passed, and then after that, we take that budget again and just start the new forecast going forward. But really, the forecast is really the overwhelming or the overriding document that tells us where the direction the district is going. It'll be more interesting this year because we do have a lot of items here that have to be determined for cost, and we haven't really heard final feedback on the actual goals and direction or any changes you might have. But that's really how it works. We want to hear what you have to say about the strategic plan, specific goals. We want to incorporate as many of those goals into the next year budget as possible from a financial resource perspective as well as a human resource perspective. But that's really, there's a couple of things like the desire to be innovative. Some things that just are throughout the whole strategic plan and the resource here and the budget piece of one of those items. This will be an ongoing thing each year, and it's basically put into print what we've been doing for many, many years now.
Okay, Mrs. Browning could not be with us tonight, so I will review the short-term goals recommended for this year that we have in communications. 5.1A, we want, I know there's been a lot of interest in developing a community-wide survey to determine the current level of engagement we have in between the school district and the community in terms of communications. So we're committed to doing that this year. Additionally, for 5.1B, provide relevant, timely, and transparent information to the community through various methodologies and two-way communication. This is another concept that we've been working on throughout the year. We want to continue to embellish that concept and continue to offer not only a breadth of communication opportunities, but also more two-way communications with the community that we actually get feedback back to us as opposed to just sending it out. The final recommendation for 2011-2012, 5.2B, review and revise our crisis communication plan. We have crisis plans in the district. However, we feel the need to review and improve how we communicate in a crisis, because that appears to be very important. And typically when one occurs, it's very good to have people operating by habit versus trying to come up with something on the go. Been there a few times myself, so I would recommend that. Those are our recommendations for the area of communications. In the area of community, as you can see, we have no, I guess it's a rose-colored items recommended, and that is purposeful. Our intent is to explore these things informally during the year, but we do not want to commit to a goal to anything in the area of community above and beyond communications for the year. And finally, moving to Area 7, innovation and adaptation. We have two in this area, and obviously innovation and adaptation implies where this is a future orientation. So it's not necessarily bad. We have a lot of goals for this coming year in this area, but we do have two. And Mr. Whitehead, do you want to talk about 7.2A?
Sure. 7.2A is analyzing the capacity with which student services staff integrate resources and strategies to advance student college and career awareness, as well as academic and social and emotional learning. We will be having some exploration about the ASCA model, the American School Counselor Association model, RAMP certification, which is no more than an audit for both of your counseling and student support programs in each building. It's a national certification that each department will receive, showing that they use the model recommended by ASCA, which basically has a focus that the counselors and student support people are using their resources to effectively work with students at a large percentage of the day. And their resources are guided in that direction. Now, to do that, we'd have to have some investigation of what the future implications of that means. It could be potential FTE, could be potential resources to make that happen. This is an early exploration phase. Based on our exploration, we would come to the board again with a report to decide whether or not we would entertain this and move forward for the 12-13 school year, looking to the rank certification for both areas.
And 7.3C, Dr. Minor?
This is related to the need to gather quantitative data for any number of things that involve the district, whether it's curriculum, instruction, assessment, whether it relates to human resources needs, whether it relates to evaluation pieces, as says Goal 7, and is anticipating that there's going to be a student growth model associated with it. Having a district data team who can pull together and crunch the data in a similar way, using the same kinds of queries year after year, so that we can have things laid out and have a bank of resources to which we can then pull data, so that North, South, and the district has access to this. And there's any number of data sets that we have to report to the state and federal government at any particular time. This way, we're all on the same page. We're determining what kind of data sets mean the most, given what this strategic plan is asking for. So that'll be a very helpful committee that'll support and provide a lot of the data sets that we'll then present to you, so you can see how well we are doing.
Okay, and before the board begins discussion, just want to review a couple of points. First, this document is a culmination of close to 15 months' work. Began in August of 2010 with focus groups. I believe there were over 30 focus groups. They included all facets of our community, including people that had no connection with the schools other than they lived in town or had a business in town. It gleaned over 100 pages of notes. The consultants brought this to the board in January, where the board spent the weekend going through it. And even though several of the current board members were not at the time, I believe all of you attended those meetings. So you also have a sense of this from an early place. Obviously, taking an incredible amount of information, trying to distill it down into a plan or a set of actions is somewhat complicated. We think we acted with fidelity, addressing the pieces that were offered by the different focus groups. We're certain we missed something or didn't account for everything. However, this is at this point, this is our recommendation for how we should move forward this year. And we'll be glad to comment tonight about what we would include for next year as well. Is that fair, colleagues?
Well, with that, we'd open it up to comments or questions from the board. Maybe anybody want to start?
It's an overwhelming amount of information. You look that way?
Nancy? Anybody? Yeah.
I just like to congratulate everybody, because I think it is an overwhelming amount of work that's been done, and it's really been presented very clearly. I'm a little concerned you're going to be able to measure all of this, but I'm sure you're up to the task. I did have one question. I'd like just to throw something out for consideration perhaps for next year, and that is to take a closer look at student health and safety. If we could look at integrating that student health and safety into some of our goals. I think it would be well worth consideration, both when thinking about things like issues like childhood obesity, violence in the home, violence on our campus. We have a lot of policies that support, policies and procedures that support what to happen when something happens. Maybe if we could have a little more of a focus, or give some thought to a focus on preventable, prevention steps. I think it might be worthy of some consideration.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I just had a quick question about the mentoring program, just to back up. I know you're going to be reevaluating. It has been considered a state-of-the-art best practice program. Do we still think it is, or do we won't really know until we audit it, or?
I think since the program was brought into the district, just some practices have changed. The recognition for the need to train your mentors that are actually mentoring the proteges. There's been a shift to put a lot more professional development behind the mentors.
Makes sense,
than
right.
what most programs have historically done. Would that be fair?
I would agree, and within the last 2 to 3 years, the state has developed a continuum with the Illinois New Teacher Consortium, and that is something that's been a really neat opportunity to look where different mentor programs can compare against the standards that they've compiled. So that's come up within the last 2 to 3 years. So it's a nice benchmark that we can compare and see how well are we doing as an audit for our program.
And as we started just some initial discussions with the teacher mentoring committee, there are certainly components of our current plan that are strong, that are meeting recommendations. There are some others that we think we can make
Cool.
better.
That's good news, and especially with our push for more diversity and different teaching styles probably will go along with that. That will be good to put that all together. And then I couldn't agree more with Nancy's suggestion, but I hate to lay any more on the plate here.
For her say next year.
Yeah, okay, we won't make you do it. All right.
Anybody else?
I have a couple. First, crisis management. Glad to see that that's there, because when we were at the ISBA conference last weekend, heard some talk about that, and even to the extent that board members need to be clued into what the crisis plan is and what to do in different situations, because no doubt the media is going to approach us, and any number of parents or what have you.
Sure.
Just your imagination can just run wild with all the potential issues, and so that's really important. I'm glad to see that there. And then the other I guess, for lack of a better word, concern I would have is regarding the discussion about minority staff recruiting. Just to be clear, the emphasis is always going to be on wanting the best candidate for the job. So the idea behind this, I'm thinking, I think I heard you say when we talked about this last time, is that there's some sort of a perception out there possibly that we aren't as interested in hiring minority candidates, or so maybe we could talk about this just a little bit more.
Sure.
I don't think we know of any perception. I think the issue is we don't have a lot of minority staff members, and that our interest is in recruiting more to make our faculty and staff more consistent with our student body. It's not that we're seen deficient by someone or some group. It's that we simply aren't as diverse as we'd like to be at this time.
And as your demographics change, with your student demographics, best practice will say you want your faculty to change demographically with your student clientele. So we know there are students in our school that don't see adults in leadership roles that look like they do. And so that's part of it. So our demographics are changing for our students, and we want our faculty demographics to reflect that as well. But absolutely honoring, the most important aspect, which is putting the best teachers in front of our students. So,
So I see this, if I understand this right, I mean, what we're looking to do is broaden the pool of people we're selecting from so that we have a better chance at maybe increasing the number of minority staff people we have, teachers we have, but always with an emphasis on hiring the best person for the position, not at this at the expense of this need to have a minority person present.
We don't have to make that sacrifice. Our interest is finding the best people, period. This is just one more way to do that.
Right.
Now, Evan was going to say something when I interrupted. Apology.
Stepped on his tongue.
I would say, given the opportunity, there's always a qualified candidate. We're always looking for the best and the brightest to be able to come to District 99. If there is an opportunity to bring in a candidate that would obviously enhance the diversity that we have within our buildings, I think that's a great opportunity to do so. And I would also add that the pool of minority candidates is also not as deep as we would like to have. So therefore, the outreach efforts that we're looking to do to be able to bring in some of those candidates that normally we would not be able to find our regular teaching job fairs at some of the colleges and universities that we normally have, or even just through word of mouth. I really think it's an effort on our behalf to go out and say we're District 99 and we're looking to be able to find candidates that would be willing to come here and give us an opportunity to work for them to work in our district. I think it's really getting our name out there and knowing about that, because I would have to say that my observation and my perspective would be that a lot of minority candidates may not be familiar with District 99, but it's our effort to make them aware of it and know about us as well.
I think that's what I heard you say at the last meeting, and but in summary, the idea here is an increased pool of people that we can look at, and through that process, we stand to put more minority folks onto our staff, and then we get to a closer reflection maybe of our student body. So that's all good. Potentially we could end up with better people by increasing the pool. So I understand that. I just wanted to be clear, because I would not be in favor of lowering the standard, all for the sake of increasing our diversity in terms of our staff. So that's it for me.
Any other comments?
Okay, Bill?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Just in addition to to your recruiting efforts, will we also be looking at our own students who are into the intro to teaching classes? I would hope.
That is one of the areas that we have discussed as a committee.
Oh, good.
A similar grow your own effort. Because if we have students, especially our minority students that are here, that have had a positive experience in District 99, what better way than to kind of cultivate that and help them to come back and teach in District 99.
Right. Oh, good. We have several who do anyway, but it would be good to really encourage that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Dr. McDonald, I'd like, I think you know the answer to this question, but just so we can sort of confirm for the record that this plan does reflect the consensus of the senior staff and all the senior administration, that this was...
Yes.
Yeah, so this is a collaborative document. My other concern, and I'm comfortable you'll answer it just fine, that at the present time, yourself and the senior staff are all content that this is a reasonably feasible plan, both in terms of staff time and basically on a plausible budget. That it's, you may be reaching in a few places, but generally it's something, because I really can't evaluate whether you all can get all this done or not. I hope you do, but...
Right. I think it is a feasible plan. As I discussed at the last meeting, previously we've had, I think, 4 goals, district goals for a given year, but within those goals, for example, the academic student achievement goal, there were a lot of different initiatives that were part of that, And in many ways, we've transferred many of the items in this document into this. Many items that were student achievement previously are now in the curriculum instruction assessment area, including that the assessment piece in item number 7 about creating a district assessment mechanism. That's something we've been trying to accomplish for several years now, to keep track of not only the standardized test scores, but keep track of our initiatives that we've put into place and see if they're really affecting students or they aren't, and what things that we could put into place instead of those and use that money differently will get a bigger bang for the buck in terms of our student success. And so, I mean, that's something we've been working on too. That's incorporated into this. I think a lot of these things are, there isn't a lot of big budget. We're not in this 2011-2012 plan other than the master site plan, which is a big budget. But we have the money for that already, so that's already set aside. However, there are some things, depending on how we move forward, that might be big budget in the future. For example, a new curriculum area may create a need to do a lot of training, buy equipment, retrofit classroom areas. We don't know that yet, what that might be, but that would be, if we were going to move in that direction, we'd have to make that commitment. The guidance and counseling program that Mr. Whitehead talked about would likely require more staffing in that area. Even completing the assessment team and making that work at a really high level might require more resources dedicated to that. So there are a number of things in this, not for this year, but for the following year, that we would have to put budget to in order to make successful. But that, we really have our fingers in a lot of pies at this point, trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do and recommend to you to move forward. But overall, I think these are all things that we're invested in already, that we all see as important to move forward on. I think the building administration, we have reviewed it with them. I think they understand and they're supportive of this as well. So I think this is a doable document at this point.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and that really gets to the heart of why I think this is just a fabulous way to do strategic planning, because we have total ownership, and it's developed in a collaborative fashion. So, I mean, basically, the basic approach, I think, is fabulous. It gets everybody involved all the time. And obviously, we will be looking to tweak things as we go along, but the fundamental approach, I'm entirely supportive of. Anybody want to add anything?
Another question, Bill. How, we may have covered it at the last meeting, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting, but how will it be expressed? Will the entire plan be on the website? Will
the idea would be, I think, my thinking is a couple ways, Mrs. Beckman. One, we would have this document on the website. I think it's already there.
It's there. Board docs.
That's what I thought, right?
And I would say a different, because we have a specific place on the website where we have district goals and board goals. I see as identifying the goals for this year and putting that
I was thinking
on the website, and in the mode of board goals 2012 and 2012-2013.
Just the major goals.
Major goals.
And then they can always refer to the
Right.
in-depth document. Good.
Well, maybe my further understanding that once on a given date the plan is passed, for example, if we vote next Monday to adopt this, that plan as of that date becomes sort of set in stone, and then we have the right to alter it at a future date.
Yes.
But this gives us a permanent historic document to look back at, so that as of December 12th, 2011, this is what we want to do, knowing full well that we have the right at any time to change sections of it.
Yes.
Because we aren't binding, we aren't tying our hands for the future. We're saying as of this date, these are our goals, and as circumstances change or we reconsider, we can pass new ones, but this is all, and it becomes a permanent record of the long-range strategic direction of the district, which I think would be a marvelous historical document, too, to help create cultural continuity. As boards transition over time, the record of where this district's been and where it's going will develop over time and create a culture that we can hand down to future boards, which I think is an excellent way to do it. Any final things on this before we move on? I think just awesome job. I was like,
Compliments to the staff.
Okay.
Lots of work.
The next on our agenda is master site plan.
All right, Mr. White, I'm locking up on my computer here. Okay, I'll start the discussion, then I'll pass to Mr. Schock and perhaps Mr. Stalen, who will help us figure out how to pay for it.
Yeah.
As we have gone through the first phase of the project, the master site plan project, and moved into the second phase of it, or the second year, different projects that are related to the master site plan have come forward. We have talked with the board about some of them previously. Example, a system for harvesting rainwater that could be used to water the grasslands that we're creating. That's a green solution, a green technology. It has a payback over time, so we wouldn't have to pay for the city's water. We'd have control over our own water. It's not to say we would never need other water than we've collected, but it is to say we'd reduce that substantially. In some years, we would not have to use anything but our own water. That is one of the projects. Other project is energy efficient lighting, that outdoor lighting that we put in the parking areas. That's another technology. That's a green technology, something that would pay for itself in a very brief period. We've talked about landscaping, understanding that we're doing an incredible amount of work at North High in the neighborhood, and in order to make that look like part of the neighborhood and not something that we've just put into place, that we have an obligation to do landscaping around it in a different way than we have in the past. And there are several other things that we have come forward or considered, or people have made known to us that are really associated with the master site plan, but we did not specify at the time that we pushed the plan forward back in January. And Marty is the one who is most knowledgeable about all of these programs and is the best background to explain them, and so I'm going to ask him to do that.
In an effort to save some trees, I didn't make copies of this document, and I can get them to the board later on. There's quite a bit of information here. And at any time, if you need to, if you have a question about referencing where some of these items might be taking place, let me know, and I've got some other slides on here that I can show you on the site plans. This document identifies a number of modifications that administration has talked about for some time. The board will remember that we brought to your attention several months ago that this was coming up. Why is it coming up? Because two reasons. First of all, we have additional funding, not additional funding, but because of the bidding situation, the poor economy, contractors putting out very good numbers, we ended up spending less on Tier 1, Phase 1 work than we expected to. Additionally, through some great engineering, we were able to reduce some of the infrastructure costs in Phase 1. And also we had a construction contingency, and we didn't spend all of that. Now, for that, and at the bottom of this document, you see the unencumbered $1.9 million. We had not planned in Tier 1 work to spend all $14.8 million that came from the sale of the third high school site. And so some of that money we look at using for technology that's being funded in other ways. So what we believe we have is about $1.9 million in unencumbered funds that we can use to pick up some additional work. And you might remember a presentation almost a year ago, we indicated to the board that we have more than enough needs and work and scope of work to do, limited amount of money, but if we didn't spend all the money on Phase 1, in phase 2, we come back and talk about accelerating some work from tier 2. And just so you know also, the tier 1 phase 2 cost estimate of $6.3 million includes about $500,000 in construction contingencies. That would be on top of that $1.9 million, but they want to list it there because you never know what we're going to find underground. So we have a significant amount of remaining dollars from that sale, and we have a number of things we'd like to do. This is not all of the items in the concept plan in tier 2. And I've got a document that I'll bring up that you can see some of those other items. But bleachers, bleacher renovations, new concessions, some of those things, you'll remember some additional fields that could be renovated, a number of those things. But we feel that these items are of the highest priority to accelerate or put into phase 2. And I'll mention also that some of these, if we agree to do them, will have to be done in phase 3. We can't get all this done in phase 2. And I'll get to that in a moment. So, starting at the top, all safety systems, both campuses. It's basically, it's just netting that goes up on the ends of soccer fields, outfields and infields of softball and baseball to keep the balls out of the public streets. We're cramped for space, and kids routinely are hitting tennis balls, softballs, baseballs, soccer balls out into the streets. This was a tier 2 item, and we think that in keeping with our goal of safety as our #1 purpose of the master site plan, that we'd like to accelerate that. I will mention, in the concept plan, you see the estimate. And in the optional scope column, you see what we think the cost really would be. And please disregard the concept plan numbers, because there was crossover. There were a lot of things within that category of work that not necessarily fit that exact category. So it's not a matter of overestimating or under-engineering. It's just a matter of how the estimates were packaged in the concept plan. But the optional scope column, those are our current numbers recommending or suggesting what these options might cost. The lighting upgrades at North High School parking lots. The parking lots are being reconstructed and relocated, so they're getting all new parking fixtures, lighting systems. And basically the lighting systems that were estimated were standard halogen outdoor lighting. And LED lighting has come into the realm of affordability, long-lasting lights, and for a small upcharge in converting from, not converting, but putting LED lights in instead of halogen lights, we can save a lot of energy. $40,000 in line item 9 and 10 for upgrading parking lot lights at the 2 schools has a payback of about 3.5 years. So,
and then what would be the life expectancy of the system then?
about 10 years for an LED light, as opposed to a year and a half, something like that, where we go around and replace the halogen bulbs. And not only that, but halogen slowly dies. It gets dimmer as they wear out. LEDs do not. They're bright until the day they turn off.
And so basically, we spend a little more money now, but over a 10-year period, we end up spending rather substantially less money.
Well, and in fact, in 3.5 years, we'd recover that $80,000, and then it would be a savings. And not only in energy conservation, but in operational costs.
I was going to add that.
I was just thinking that too.
So LED lighting was not in the scope of work in the concept plan, but I think it's a payback that typically when we find a payback like that in energy conservation, we jump on it pretty quick.
Would you like us to interject as you go along, or should we wait?
Please go right ahead.
I'm curious that the number is exactly the same for north and south parking lots.
It's a good question. We have more light fixtures at South High School to replace and upgrade than we do at North. But North is getting all new light poles.
Right.
And at South High School, we're just buying the heads. So actually, while the numbers are the same, we're getting a lot more for our money at North High School, because we're already buying the poles, the pedestals, all of the wiring that remains in place. We're just replacing the heads on these fixtures.
So it's just coincidental that the costs end up being somewhat similar?
It is just purely coincidental.
And then backing up one on the ball safety, I mean, are we talking about some sort of huge nets like I see alongside golf courses?
We could be, depending how you define.
Huge nets.
It's absolutely needed. I mean, I've been on Main Street when tennis balls have come out into traffic, and it's a hazard, I think, to the drivers. And I've seen some cars swerve, and so.
What we're talking about is, if I can get.
Just minus.
There we go. Yeah. If
Else he doesn't.
pull up, there we go. Oops. Let's take North High School.
Okay.
Site plan. And apologize for the size, but we've got the new bus parking, visitor parking over on the west side, and the main parking lot on the east side. I'm sorry, we're talking about fields. This field here on the west side is a practice field, lower level soccer field. End zones here and here, and those soccer balls can go quite a distance.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be talking about netting, and it would be retractable netting. It doesn't stay up all year long. So there would be fence around everywhere. But on these two ends, there'd be this netting that could be 40 feet high, 30 feet, 50 feet, depending on distances, sizes, and that kind of thing. It changes over here on Main Street along this side of the softball field. That wouldn't be as high because that's a further distance for those softballs.
For the record, we don't anticipate the girls hitting the softball from home plate out onto Main Street.
You don't know that.
Let's not be sexist.
So,
No, I'm not being sexist.
It's the velocity.
The field was measured so that it's extremely unlikely that someone will hit a softball out onto Main Street. Because many people are concerned that we put the field too close to Main Street, and I responded, no, I think it's far enough away from Main Street. It was measured to be far enough away from Main Street.
If they do, they will be signed immediately. That's right.
This would address the tennis courts.
It could, and it should.
I think it should.
And the funds are there to do it. One thing I want to remind everyone about here, when we're looking at something like these modifications and we put estimates together, we only take a design a short distance, just enough to get a concept. And so there can be a lot of change if we decide to go further with those projects. It's very costly to put these designs together, and so we do just the minimum amount to put an estimate together. So any schematics, sketches, concept drawings that you see on the board can change in detail, but generally speaking, they give you an indication of what's going on.
Right.
And the reason I mention that is because, for instance, this field is also a PE field, and if the school has soccer on that field, that 6-foot fence might not be high enough to stop some of those soccer balls from going off to the side.
With the netting getting so high, are there any zoning considerations with that? Do we anticipate any issues with the village?
We have mentioned to the village what our thought is, what our concerns are. There are code issues with fixed fences. There don't appear to be any code issues that apply to a school district with temporary netting.
Okay.
But you're leading right up to one of our concerns is what would it look like in the neighborhood, and that's why they would be retractable, so we can take them down. Okay, so let me take you back to that sheet. All right, the rate harvesting. Oh. Rain harvesting at both campuses is simply storing rainwater that we pick up from the required stormwater detention basins that we're building in both schools, have built at both schools, storing that water and reusing it for irrigation systems. Part of the concept plan that was approved was irrigation of those fields that we're renovating. Our fields are heavily used because we are short on space, and it's not the only way that we can keep our fields surviving in the heavy use, but better irrigation systems will help us take care of our overused fields, and that's expensive. It's not only expensive water, but pumping that water, and there are restrictions with the village on how often we can water and how much water we can use. If we have our own storage systems, we're unencumbered with those rules and regulations. Now, these grain harvesting tanks are about 60,000 gallons each. That's enough for a couple of weeks worth of watering in the middle of the summer. So it's not a complete solution, but there's a level of diminishing return. The more you pay for the larger the detention system, the less it saves you. Otherwise, we could go a lot bigger than 60,000 gallon tanks, but that's what we're working on. And there's a payback there too. It's about 7 to 10 years. It's not that 3.5 years, but it's still got a great payback to it.
Is our sanitary bill calculated off our water use as it is with so by decreasing our water use, we're also having savings on our sanitary?
That's correct. Yeah, and the only way to get around that is to meter our sanitary discharges, and that's very expensive.
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. And we know with we're adding fields at North High School and irrigating those new fields and irrigating the old fields. So our water bill is going to go up significantly.
Right.
And
in
so
more
this
ways
is a way
than
of
one.
combating that. North High School, with its limited space, we have to compromise in several areas. And one of them is with respect to where the parking lots are and where the school entrances are. Now, what's happening then is we are
Need a chair, Marty?
No, I'm fine, thank you. So what's happening is the bus drop-off here, which is also being used for student pickup and drop-off by parents in the morning and in the evening hours for athletics and on the weekends, is not that close to the entrance to the building. And so one of the things we're trying to do, as we do at South High School, is give the students not only a clear path to the school, but a protected path, a canopy. Again, it wasn't in the original concept plan, but what we're talking about is right over here in this end of the stadium, I'm sorry, right here, you can see it in black, would be an open linear canopy attached to the new washrooms that will be built this summer. That gives the kids a place to stand and wait for the parents for buses out of the weather. No different than what we have at South High School, but unfortunately it's not attached to the building, but it's as close to the parking lot, as close to the building as we can get.
Marty, if we don't do this with this canopy and it's raining, where are all the students going to be?
They're going to be standing inside, or they're going to be standing in the rain.
Right. Probably wanting to stay out of the rain, so probably inside. I'm just wondering about the logistics of all that,
Well,
the problems it
and
creates.
from the looks of it, there's really no place close
Right.
to where the buses are for students to stand. The other places around the corner there in the foyer of the Purple Gem.
Exactly. I'll come to another drawing in a minute, but again, this is a rendering. It's a concept. It may not look quite like this, but what you see here are the washrooms. The new washrooms will be built this year, and here's the canopy.
Right.
And this is Prince Street, the portion that we have a petition for vacating it. And the bus pickup lot is right here, so the kids coming out of the building back here can wait here, see mom and dad or their buses arrive, And I'll show you in another plan whether the buses and the cars are picking them up here or over in the bus parking lot. They have somewhere close to where their pickup is, instead of waiting back inside the building 300 feet, 400 feet from where the cars are, and they can't even tell if mom and dad or the
Right.
buses have gotten there yet.
Well, we could talk about what to do and how much to spend on it, but to not have something, I think, it just doesn't work. At least that's how I see it. We need some place for the students to be out of the weather,
Staging
waiting.
area.
We need something.
I'll come back to
So-
this part in a few minutes, but here's the washrooms, here's the canopy.
Right.
And the kids come out of the
Right,
events entry.
way back there.
Way back here.
Right.
And they have nowhere,
Right.
they can't even see what's beyond this.
So I'm just thinking about the congestion that can happen, waiting and waiting and waiting, and you're not going to be able to move and we heard plenty from some of the neighbors about congestion that's experienced now, and the whole idea behind this is to improve things, and not having the canopy, I think, was a deficiency possibly in our original, it should have been there from day one, my personal opinion.
Well, they're still going to have to go out into the elements in order to get
course.
there. It's...
But at least you've got a place to wait where you're supposed to be
Someplace.
waiting.
It's just a few feet as opposed to
Mhm.
200.
As we go through this list, you're going to get a sense that most of these modifications, these recommendations are North High School, and that's true. But most of our problems are at North High School with the lack of space and the need to do
Sure.
more with that space, limited space, in order to
Understood.
bring it up to the standards that we feel are necessary, and for the most part that South already has. But there are a couple things that we're doing at both schools. There isn't a drawing for the next one. But using permeable pavers in the plaza, you saw at both campuses what that did visually, but it did more than that. It also helps us with stormwater detention and rain runoff. We had not planned on constructing the Prince Street plaza, I'll call it, once we vacate Prince Street, with pavers. But when the village indicated that their requirements for vehicle loads on that causeway or plaza had to handle 80,000 pounds for emergency vehicles, then it made it very cost-effective to use pavers out there also, because they have a higher strength than asphalt and thin concrete. This is a heavy concrete road, so it's a very slight expense, and we get a lot out of it, not only from aesthetics, breaking up all that pavement, making it look better, but also, again, it allows water to drain down into the ground. That's one of our green issues, that one of the ways of addressing green needs.
Marty, could we bring the spreadsheet back up on the
Sure
screen?
can. We did look, and it's not on here because the cost was prohibitive. But I will mention that we also looked at permeable pavers in the parking lots. And the parking lots are designed to 80,000 pound capacity, load capacities. So if you want to know how expensive pavers are, a bus parking lot would be an additional $240,000 to go with permeable pavers. Love to do it. But it's an expensive cost, and there's not much of an offset for the detention basin in that case, because we're not putting a detention basin over there anyway. We got lucky and don't have to do that.
Marty, could I interrupt real quick? Are you talking, when you talk about the plaza, are you talking about the Prince Street Circle, just what is currently paved right now and asphalted?
Not Prince Street Circle, Prince Street from Grant to Sherman. To the north.
Vacated area,
Yeah,
okay.
it will still be a causeway, let's call it, or a walkway or a plaza. It's designed for emergency vehicles,
Right.
fire trucks and whatnot. It's not through traffic, and it's not intended for anything other than emergency traffic, otherwise it's all pedestrian. It's one of the basic purposes of this project at North High School is to eliminate the need for kids to walk across the street, going to their cars or going to a PE station or to an athletic field.
I just want to be clear, 'cause I think maybe some of our neighbors may not understand that particular concept. I think of the plaza, I think of the Prince Street Circle and how nice that is, and
Yeah.
thank you.
Landscaping, you may wonder why that was not in the concept plan. It's just our standard operating procedure. We have a very good buildings and grounds staff, and when we do any kind of construction that requires landscaping, we do it internally, in-house, over a period of time. In this case, two things are happening here. The reason for that line item. One, as you all know, we had an open house with the neighbors, and we heard them loud and clear that they're concerned about landscaping. We have a limited amount of space to landscape, but I have a couple renderings that just give you an idea of what we can do. We're talking parkway, and these parkways are not our property, they're village property. But we are allowed to, and the village is encouraging us to do as much landscaping as we can. Now, we have to be careful because there are requirements by the village on types of plants and heights and screening.
Can you maximize that one? Can you maximize the?
Oh, I'm sorry, sure.
Thank you.
So what I'm showing here is the top one. Again, these are parkways, so it's the space between the street and our parking lots, the street and our fields, and what we can do. And they're narrow, but there are some sidewalks that need to be replaced, and mostly it's grass or dirt, and these are kind of things that we can do. And we're working with neighbors of North High School and the village, and in fact, some of our science department teachers at North High School have also gotten involved and would like to help pick out plantings that they can use in their biology classes. Now, there is landscaping at South High School also, and it'll be along the west field here between 63rd Street and the field.
Good.
Ticket booth and entrances at both stadiums, and you'll see a discrepancy in the concept plan cost of $492,000 and $60,000. There's a lot to this. The ticket booths were never $492,000. At the time the concept plan was put together, it was recognized that the entrances to the stadiums are discombobulated. There's 3 or 4 entrances. They aren't well marked. They were well lit. They were not necessarily going in the right direction.
Traffic flow.
So there was a lot of, yes, traffic flow was
terrible.
Traffic flow was terrible. So it was not just ticket booths, but the entrances, sidewalks, the fencing, all of that kind of thing. In reality, for about $60,000, we can replace the existing wood structure at South High School that is located on the east side, southeast corner by the student parking lot. It's rotted, it's falling apart, and I think it's designed for one person. We need 2 rows of ticket takers in order to handle the crowds. And at North High School, they didn't have a ticket booth. They don't have a ticket booth. They had 3 entrances. They put a table up. You'll remember a few years ago we had a robbery, so we have a security issue, not only just an entrance issue. And again, I've got some renderings of this, and these can and probably will change, but South High School, in keeping with the paver situation and giving 2 rows of entry, that's what it might look like.
Very nice.
It's about $10,000 or $15,000 for the structure. And at North High School, it would be tied into the washroom, canopy, security fencing, so it would just mimic that design. That's that structure that's closest to you on the left side there. So again, these could change somewhat. And again, because at this point in time, we don't take it too far through design. But we need, I think we need, an obvious entrance into our facilities, and we need to make sure that they're safe and secure.
Marty,
Yes.
were you going to do 2 at each school?
Right now, we're looking, we would be pleased to get one at each school.
Okay.
But if we were to go to two at each school or three, they would be satellites, they would be more along the lines of a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 pre-built wood structure that we can move, relocate if necessary.
Because at North, on the Main Street entrance, don't they have just as much traffic coming in as, especially with the parking lot being over there?
that side.
Yes.
You know,
Both schools struggled with
Yeah, I
where
bet
their
they
main
did.
entrance should be. And North High School, although the larger parking lot is east of the field, a good number of people would be coming down that sidewalk. They felt that their main entrance is still to the west. The parking lot over there, people are, the buses, the student buses, athletic buses all come in that direction. So North still unquestionably decided if they only could have one ticket booth, it would still best be on the Prince Street side.
are we going to, I guess, maybe I didn't make it clear, are we going to work on plans to do that entrance? Because I think if we have funds somewhere, that might be really a good place to put the money, just because that's where our main parking lot's going to be. And, you know.
Well, and one of the purposes for this meeting is to gather this input, because our recommendation for these items is significantly less than the amount of dollars that are available. So there are dollars to go further than what we're suggesting here.
So, you know, I mean, I'm just suggesting to see how much that second entrance would be there especially, and maybe work out a plan and let us know what it is, and maybe we can figure it out and put it in there.
Both schools felt that a small portable structure
Would work.
Between $4,000 and $6,000 for each satellite to take care of it. So there would be 2 more satellite ticket booths in each school. So we'd be somewhere maximum $24,000 for 4 more.
Well, I think it might be well worth the money, but that's my personal opinion, so.
And again, that $60,000, some of that, half of that is for those structures that I just showed you what they might look like. The other half is for the pavement underneath and the fencing, which has to take place anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Has to occur.
So,
Moving on to line item 16, when we designed the washrooms at South High School, we abandoned the existing washrooms, which are about 7 feet wide by 15 feet deep and almost useless. But space is so tight at South High School that they're grabbing at anything. And what we'd like to do is knock a couple walls out, which would expand the squad rooms, or they could become storage. But it's not significant, but it'll help. But right now, those 2 old washrooms are just locked up.
It's space sitting there and we're not using it.
right,
so.
right.
Correct. In fact, South High School could come up with 7 or 8 things they could use that room for so quick, they're not even quite sure. But square footage is at a premium, so let's grab a hold of it.
Just an aside on that, the restrooms at South are very nice.
They're very nice, yes.
And
Kudos.
Huge improvement, and I know they'll love them at North, too.
Line item 17 was identified in the concept plan in Tier 2. We use, at North High School, we use Eric's Field, and we do some work on it. We maintain it to some extent, we fertilize, we aerate it, we overseed it, that kind of thing. But it's, even at that, it doesn't meet our standards for even a practice field or a PE field. And it's very helpful to have this additional field. The concept plan identified just a regrading and reseeding of it, and that's why you see a $126,000 estimate. But for $405,000, we met with District 58 on several occasions and talked about, you know, if we, what we're short of at North High School is lower level girls softball field. Now, phase 1 brought in the upper level, the varsity softball field, but we still don't have a lower level softball field on campus. And Herrick Field would be a perfect place for it. So we could construct a softball field and a practice field, and District 58 asked that we take care of, in exchange, we take care of a couple other items. And so this drawing depicts that. So you see the...
Marty, can you enlarge it again?
Sure can. Now I know why I like to use drawings. What you see is the lower level, second level softball field in the lower right-hand corner, and then the practice field laid out in a north-south arrangement. We're interrupting, disturbing, impacting some of District 58's facilities. That's why this price has gone up. We have to relocate a driveway, and they asked that we would put a stone running path or walking path around the perimeter. Herrick wouldn't use the softball field. That's not in their programs, athletic or PE. Of course, they would use the practice field, but the running path is something that they could really use. So this is one of those items that if we decide to go ahead with it, would be a phase 3. We can't pull it off in this next phase coming up next summer.
Would Herrick, or would District 58 share in the cost of the development?
No.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask.
You know, obviously, they are satisfied with the facility as it is.
I see. I just thought,
We're asking them if we could put our softball field there and then make other improvements, and so
I
the
understand.
quid pro quo is they would be thrilled with, they're very interested in that crushed stone walking path track, and they think that could really be a boost to their physical education program. And so, as we discussed it, that seemed like something they'd be very interested in, and that would help, as Marty said, the opportunity to have our entire softball program on the campus is huge.
Another field of this size with two functions for $400,000 is a bargain.
Yeah.
Now, we would be taking it to a level well beyond what District 58 standards are, and so we would have to maintain it. We're maintaining it now, so our grounds people would maintain it.
Okay.
So it would definitely remain natural grass.
Yes. Yes.
And there'd be some sort of agreement in place that would allow us to continue using that. I mean,
Right.
I mean,
Well, the issue, and obviously they would not want us to interrupt their physical education program.
Right.
But our softball program would occur after school when they aren't using it. We've also, the Park District is aware of this as well. We wouldn't be interfering with their programs. So, you know, it's kind of like a very convenient opportunity that would embellish several different programs at once.
And because we've been using Herrick Field for most of the years that I've been here, we know we have a good relationship with them, and we know how much use we can get out of those fields, and it's significant. So it would not be a problem working around that, and our several meetings with District 58 bears that out.
but there wouldn't be any issues with perhaps 58 letting somebody else use the softball field at a time when we would want to use it? Nothing, no concerns?
I think we would have to have an intergovernmental
That's what I was
agreement,
asking. There'd be
but I
something
believe that they
in
would
place.
be amenable to that sort of
Okay.
agreement based on our conversations. I don't want to speak for District 58, but I believe that they're very interested in cooperating with us in a mutually beneficial way. Thank you,
It's a
Mrs.
great,
Pavicic.
great deal for us.
The last item that is on this list and that administration feels is high priority is very new to this list. This was not something that we shared with you 3 months ago. Actually, Mark Stalen directed designers to go back and take a second look at our pedestrian traffic problems at North High School based on comments from the neighbors, comments from the village staff, engineers, and comments from the Planning Commission. And we listened very carefully. We surveyed, we took a look at that survey, and Probably one of the prime concerns that the residents have is after, and this is at North High School, is after school hours, athletic student pickup. When parents come in, there will be buses on occasion, but this is mostly a problem with parents. They're parking illegally on the street, blocking traffic. They're circling and circling and circling, and it looks like there's 200 cars out there when there's 50 going around the blocks. And we really can't control how they drive on the streets. So you look at the solution, get them off the street. And so that was Mark's charge, is take a look at Prince Street Circle that's not in the concept plan. Is there anything we can do there to improve this? My answer was we tried in 1999 with the master facility plan. And the problem is that the loading dock is back inside the Prince Street Circle. 60 or 70% of our students come in that events entry, 1928 entry, and into the cafeteria entry. We have garbage trucks back there, delivery trucks. Airmark delivers back there. Mini buses and dry bread cars. You put all that together and it's a mess and it's a safety hazard. And unfortunately, back in 1998 or 99 when we looked at it, the only solution was to move the loading dock, and then we were talking about oodles of money trying to get the loading dock outside of the center of the facilities. So North High School has been living with this problem for many a year. I thought this was going to be a futile exercise, but actually a couple concepts come out. They don't solve all the problems, but they improve and they address some of those things that neighbors in the village are talking about. Again, it's a concept plan. We haven't taken it through to design yet because that's expensive to do, but if this seems like a good move, we want to take it further. What you're looking at is, right now it's a circle, hence the name Prince Street Circle. And we have the loading docks here, garbage dumpster here, and over here, this is the entrance to the cafeteria. This is the events entry and the pool entry, the white gym. And so we have a circular drive like this that's been blocked off for the 30 years that I've been here. We don't let parents, for the most part, get in here and drop off and pick up because we have 1,500 kids coming out of school and crossing a driveway. One of the problems is there's no sidewalk there. It's all driveway, so kids have to walk down the driveway to their buses, to their cars, if they're walkers, to mom and dad if they pick them up on the street. So what this does is it still allows semis to get into the loading dock, garbage truck. We pull out the dry bread cars which park here. We pull out the school buses that park here. One of the concerns the school has raised is they don't have an area for kids to gather. Right outside the cafeteria is a couple of tables, and they're eating next to garbage cans, so not a real nice place to gather and talk. So in keeping with green and sustainable facilities, there's some green space here, large sidewalk getting over to our exiting area, and off-street parking in this area, get them off the street so they don't block the traffic, and a small loop right here that cars can stack up and pick up kids. Keep in mind that this bus parking lot over here has 88 parking spaces, and that's generally where we want most parents to stop and wait for their kids who are standing on the canopy. But this gives another 15, 20 cars, takes them off the street, stops them from circling. We're not sure that we're at the point of saying this is the final design. We might be able to make this loop a little bit bigger, stack a few more cars up. But what we're doing is we're not getting the cars down here so the kids that are crossing aren't crossing with all that traffic. The problem that we can't resolve and haven't figured out how is crossing Prince Street still, and that's a problem no matter what, unless the kids follow our design to come down and then cross over at the plaza. If they want to cross over the street there, that's going to be our. We have traffic control people there that hopefully will handle that kind of thing. So this has got a lot more work to do, but we needed to identify an approximate cost and then decide, while it's a compromise, it does address some of the things that the neighbors in the village asked for. Is it worth that kind of money to proceed with that? Okay, I've got one more document to show you, and this one is, might be a little bit difficult to read. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Marty.
Okay.
You can tell me anything, Marty, and I'd believe you.
Marty, before
Yes.
we go to that, with the Prince Street Circle, that was probably something for next summer, right?
Right, that would
So we
also
have
be a
time
phase
to-
3.
Oh.
I can think about it.
Yeah,
go through it.
and talk about it a
Yeah.
little.
And there's, an item before that also was the Herrick.
I know you can't
Both
read
of those
this.
are a year
Phase three.
away at least, so we
Okay.
just wanted to give you the first.
Got it.
This document is directly out of the concept plan that was presented to the Board of Education nearly a year ago. And for South High School and North High School, these were the Tier 1 items, which we're addressing in Phase 1 and Phase 2. Tier 2 were high priority items that we didn't feel at the time we would have funding for, so they sat back. And this is where I'm getting those items on this list, where I'm indicating we're accelerating out of Tier 1. But there are a lot of line items on Tier 2 that we still feel are important, but not important enough to make this list. Bleachers in the stadiums, concessions, bigger concessions, squad rooms. Our kids can't fit in the squad rooms at either camp. Well, at South High School, they can't fit in the squad rooms, they go into the garage. In North High School, they go back into the building or they go into the garage out there. Storage is a real problem that we're dealing with. I think there's half a dozen more items in there that we may want to contemplate bringing forward. But the problem with this is that if you do one like new bleachers, now you affect so many other things, the price skyrockets very quickly, and it's very tough to get much for your money. One set of bleachers at one of the schools will just about take away or spend our budget balance. So while we'd like to do those things, and we would hope one day to do those things, they haven't made the funding cut that we're working with. The good news is that if we were to do all of the items on this list, approximately $900,000.
That's not right. You have three items over $400,000.
I'm sorry.
You're about $1 million off.
Yeah, the total doesn't add up.
Yeah, you have
I mean, there's
406.
4 items that are over
I know, I'm
400,000.
sorry, I know why. I got this, it's $400,000 off. I got this number about 2 hours ago.
Oh.
And I slipped it in there and I didn't change
But
the.
still.
I didn't change the.
It still doesn't
You're
add
still
up.
off, Marty.
Okay, I'll have to check my.
Next
It
one.
could be that the Herrick renovation and the Prince Street Circle renovation
17,
were added late, because what you have there is about really more like
1.6.
1.6, 1.7 million.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't look at the formula now. I will correct that. And that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, they're
I see
tier
about $2
three.
million there, looks like to me. Now, under $2 million. So that puts us at about spending all of our unencumbered money, with the exception of the $500,000 contingency that's built in to phase 2 work. And these numbers are still based on our concept numbers that were put together a year and a half ago. And we fully expect to get bid numbers significantly below this like we did in phase 2. So we think those numbers will be even better than what you're seeing there. The purpose for this meeting is to get input from the Board of Education, general consensus if we should move forward with these modifications, so that I can send the architects and the engineers back to the drawing board to do more details. And as we get better details and we get better pricing. But we need to, if we're going to go forward with any of this work in phase 2, not phase 3 work, but phase 2 work, we need to put our bid documents together because we want to be out to bid for the most part. And it'll be sequenced, there'll be several phases of this, but January, February, maybe March. So we need to move forward.
Okay. Marty, can you quickly review which line items you would want to bid on to have the work done next in the summer of 12?
Summer of 2012 would be the ball safety. Well, the ball safety systems actually could go up in the following year because they're going on fields that won't be
ready.
Yeah. So that could be phase 3. The lighting upgrades at North High School would be phase 2. At South High School could be phase 3 or 2. Rain harvesting would be phase 2.
I hope so.
The North High School's canopy and security fencing is phase 2. Permeable pavers in the plaza at North is phase 2. Landscape is phase 2. Ticket booth entrances to the stadiums is phase 2. Conversion of the abandoned washrooms could be phase 2 or phase 3. Would make much difference. Herrick, phase 3, and Prince Street, phase 3. Now, Prince Street, phase 3, simply, we don't have enough time to get those documents together to bid it. But more than that is, we have a 10-week summer, and we're going to be tearing up all the parking lots. It's going to be tough enough to get those parking lots torn up and rebuilt in time for school without taking on another roadway project. So that's really the major reason for putting off Prince Street Circle until phase 3. But it needs a lot more study. It needs a lot more.
For what it's worth, adding numbers in my head is always dangerous. But I think if you leave off 8, 17, and 18, the 878 is very close to being in the ballpark. Which, when it sounds like those were the phase 2 ones that you're talking about, because even if the ball safety nets was a desirable phase 2, if the fields haven't been built yet, you can't put the nets up.
Yeah.
So double check my math. I'm trying to do this in my head, but it looks like if you take 8, 17, and 18 off of the total, I'm not saying it's exact, but I think.
That's right.
Excuse me?
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay, so we would be looking at about $880,000 in improvements to spend in the summer of 12. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, so that gives us funds for phase 3, and those contingencies are still there. So we're not stretching our neck out here and trying to bite off too much from a funding standpoint. We can handle that. I would imagine if the bidding in phase 2 comes out like phase 1 did, I'll be back at this time next year suggesting we throw a couple more things out there. There are less likelihood of surprises like we had when we rebuilt the stadiums last summer. And we knew that because we're not building structures as much as fields. So bad soil conditions, which cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, shouldn't be an issue. So again, I would see us coming back and suggesting that next year at this time, we might be able to come back and suggest that we accelerate some other tier 2 items.
Other questions about this? Anybody?
Great work.
Very exciting, Marty.
Very exciting and encouraging.
Okay. We're ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion regarding a potential board self-evaluation. Ms. Pavicic, you sent the written letter on that, so maybe you could...
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. I really think it's something that we need as a board to move forward. And we probably should have done it before now because we have a new board, and IASB recommends that we usually have a self-evaluation when a new board is formed, and I think as soon as possible would be the best.
Okay, other input on this topic?
I would concur. I think it will be a useful exercise for us, and it is something we've done with new boards since I've been here. And it's never really too late.
No, but I think,
It's time.
it is time.
And I believe you mentioned at the last meeting that Barb Tony's schedule is filling up.
Yes,
January.
and I think having her, and that would give us an opportunity to meet her.
Right, get to know her.
And chat with her, and that since she is our representative now. And I just think it's a very good idea.
Anyone want to add anything?
Historically, since, actually even before I became superintendent, I would say the board had some kind of self-evaluation workshop at least once every 2 years. But on a regular basis, it has had these workshops. Just to clarify, we don't have to use Mrs. Tony from the School Board Association. The advantage to using her is that the board can have its meeting in closed session, but we could also hire a consultant. We've used Dr. Attia in the past for this process, and that although if we use a consultant that's not part of the School Board Association, by law, we have to have the meeting in open session.
Nancy, go ahead.
I think it's a great idea, and I'd hope that we would use Mrs. Tony. I think it would be good for the people who've been seated on the board for a while to air some differences, and I think for the new people, we would learn a lot from having IASB officiate as well.
I have a couple points. Being one of those new board members, what's the goal? What do we accomplish at the retreat?
Typically, it's been, we just gain a better understanding of each other, and if we have differences, which we have had over the past few months, we can sort of find out exactly where those differences are coming from and then reach a common ground so that we can really work constructively together. And I know Mr. Castle usually sent us a evaluation form to fill out ahead of time, and then he would compile the results, and then we would work from that document. I suspect that Ms. Tony does the same thing, but it's a very useful exercise for us to sit and actually put our thoughts on paper, exactly where we're coming from. And I think it just it can, under the best of circumstances, help us work really constructively together. We really understand each other better.
So we've done this, past boards have done this.
Every 2 years, whenever we've had a new board.
And in the past, we found it to be a constructive endeavor.
Well, there's difference of opinion about that. The last one was not constructive, in my opinion.
Right. I think a lot will depend on who the facilitator is.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I would advocate for Dr. Attia, because I'm very comfortable with him. And I think that
rather than Miss, than Miss
Yes, I would. So, and I think that because he came on when we started some of the new directions on strategic planning, and I'm actually much more comfortable with Dr. Attia. I'm comfortable with his philosophy about intra-board relations. And so that would be my first choice if we were to go ahead to do this. I would want some understanding as to what the goal is, whether it's to rehash the past or bury the past. If the goal is to bury the past and move forward, absolutely.
Burying is kind of a good idea.
But if we're going to re-argue things we've argued before, I don't think it would be a productive use of our time.
Well, it's my, I give a lot to this board since I've been on, in terms of the time. I know we all do. It's something I've had to adjust to, but I think I've made the adjustment, but it's quite a bit of time. So to devote another Saturday morning or whenever we would do this to this, I would absolutely insist that it be constructive. So
Totally. And that's why it's important to have the right facilitator.
Right.
To help it be, who is experienced. I guess I could go either way. I think I would prefer the closed session, but just because I think everybody's a little more relaxed, but I could go either way, but it's really helpful to have an outside facilitator keep us on track. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a Saturday. Sometimes we've used just an evening. It's shorter. Maybe it's a little preferable to have a longer time, but totally agree with you. We need to be very deliberate about how we spend our time, because it's very, time is a precious entity. But I do think it would be helpful.
Mr. Mattoon, anything to add?
I just think that going along with the time constraint, I think summer would probably be a valuable time for this board to, if we decided to move in that direction, to approach it from that standpoint. I think the new board members would have a full year under their belt. I think they would understand a budgeting process. I think they would understand staffing process and all the other entities that come into play there. I think I also would agree with Dr. Attia. I think his past experience has been invaluable, and I think right now having a comprehensive strategic plan, master site plan, I think things are working well currently, and if we were to do something like this, I think the summer would be an ideal time.
I also think Dr. Attia knows us.
True.
He knows
Well,
us.
you know,
Conducted a previous.
remember,
Several.
you haven't given Barb a chance. She is our new field service representative, and do you know her? I mean,
But that's why, because this is very an important thing.
I mean,
and
but I
we're
think
shooting in
that
the
we
dark.
need to speak with her at some point, to get to know her too, to find out if in fact she can help us, because I think we have some problems, Bill, that we need to really work on, and I'm willing to work on them, and however we need to do that.
Absolutely.
And I feel very strongly about this. And I think waiting until summer is not a good time to do that either, because I really feel that sometimes we're going down the wrong road. And I think we need to really work on this, and soon.
See, part of the reason to advocate for Dr. Attia is that he knows the history, where somebody new is coming in without knowing, and we spend a lot of time educating that person on how we got to where we are today. Dr. Attia knows how we got where we are today. And that's one reason I would
beg to differ with that, but because I think the ISB knows what we're doing.
It's fine. I can see both sides. Would you, and then you would advocate for the open session with
Well, it would have to
Dr.
be,
Attia,
but
right.
and that's just life. But Dr. Attia has done great work with us in the past. He knows at least 4 of us, and
But knows the rest of us through the superintendent
oh, sure,
evaluation process
exactly,
as well.
exactly.
Yeah, we
And
were
he's
all
worked with the
right.
board several times. I personally have considerable confidence in his expertise with helping boards work together.
And to be clear, whether open or closed session, I mean, we could have an open session with Ms. Tony as well, correct?
Sure.
I mean, we have the option of having the closed
That's
session with her
true.
that we don't have, but to be clear, we could have that in open session if that was the issue.
Only a
Open
certain
session, closed
small
session.
number of items actually by law have to be in closed session when they involve information about students. But pretty much anything can be an open session, even if it doesn't have to be.
Is there any way we can evaluate the facilitation skills of both people?
That's that's a challenging question.
Well, it is a challenging question, but I would agree. I think that we have some issues to resolve, and I think it would behoove us to do in closed session. And if we had some sort of sense that both people were good facilitators, I think it would make our decision a lot easier.
Well, as a
I don't know
past
how we would do that.
participant, yeah, as a past participant in the last couple of years, just going from my own experience and just my own opinion, I would have to think about this only because I would want a set of clear goals and clear objectives. Because in the past couple of years when we did it, I don't think that this board actually gained anything that I thought was useful or positive going forward. I found it more of a time that people were wanting to grieve, or to air their grievances, but really without finding the common ground or the ability to work together after the process was finished. And so after doing that for the last couple of years, I'm a bit cautious. I would want to know what it is that we're going to accomplish and how they think they're going to accomplish that before, we would go and spend our time doing something that might.
Well, and I think that's understandable. I would hope that what we get out of this would be to have stronger working relationships.
Yes.
Not to
That would be the goal, right.
arrow grievances.
Right.
And that would at least be the expectation in my mind.
Start from now and work forward.
And again, that's what I'm saying. I have confidence that Dr. Attia knows how to help us do that. And it's important that we do that. And somebody new, do you take the known quantity or do you open the unknown box?
Well, perhaps there's another way to get to know Ms. Tony, too. Maybe there's something else she could do a workshop with us on, and then we'd get to know her. But I could work with either person. I happen to know Ms. Tony. I know her quite well, and I think she'd be very capable, but that's just my own subjective opinion.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything right now? Or because I think, let's see.
The board is interested in contracting with the Dr. Attia. I will need to contact him soon. He's semi-retired now. I mean, he retired as a superintendent about 15 years ago, but I think he's sort of retired from his consulting firm, and he's only working with selected clients, of which we are one. But as he has more grandchildren and they live all over the country,
Right.
His availability is not what it was 3 or 4 years ago. So I would have to contact him and find out when he would be available.
I think that'd be a worthwhile exercise to take. To
Perhaps
find
that's
out when available, right. Find out when Dr. Attia
That's the important
will be
question.
available. Right.
What's the potential downside to waiting as Mr. Mattoon has suggested?
I don't know, unless we feel there are issues we do really need to settle before June.
Well, I think so. We've got several very important issues coming up, and we need to be
We
able
always do.
to work on those together as a group, not just as individuals. And I really feel to move forward, that's part of it.
Negotiations would be one of the
Absolutely.
things.
Having just finished a highly contentious issue, in some ways we can see what happens in December and January, because in the event that things fail, if things fall apart in January, then there's an emergency to get somebody in right away. If things go well in January, then it's not, then the same urgency doesn't necessarily exist. What I'd like to just point, my suggestion would be to see what Dr. Attia's schedule is, maybe report back to us, and we can take this up at a future meeting.
Okay.
The other question I have, Mr. White, is what is the cost associated with taking a half a day and hiring somebody to come in and help facilitate?
And we can maybe get those numbers. I don't know those. I don't think they're extravagant, but they're not free.
Neither would be free.
Right.
The School Board Association is not free.
No, but I'm sure Dr. Attia is more than the school board.
I just think in these cost-cutting, times that, if we can't get along and we have to hire somebody to tell us how to get along, I don't think that really reflects very well upon this board.
It's not necessarily.
Honestly, I think that these types of activities are recommended on a regular basis. So I don't think we have to look at it as a deficiency we have, because this is recommended for doing business, in a sense.
And I concur with that basic approach on it.
I would also say that there are costs of consulting, and I think Dr. Attia is more expensive than the Illinois School Board Association, because part of the cost is offset by the dues that we pay. On the other hand, Dr. Attia's been very good to us in terms of what he charges. So it's not one is $250 and one is $5,000. They're going to be relatively close in cost.
Well, I would be interested in knowing more about Ms. Tony's skill set with this. I mean, because we want the best person to do this. So I would be interested in that. And then I'll just also state for the record that this only works if we're all there. And so I've gone through my calendar. I have blocked out to make sure that I can attend those meetings that we've placed on the calendar. But I'll just warn you, between with my 4 kids and all their activities, this is a particularly busy time of year for my family with basketball and gymnastics, among other things. And so, not looking to stonewall on this from a practical standpoint.
Exactly.
And if I'm going to give the time to do it, it sure as heck better be productive. And
And that's why I suggested summer, only because we go down to 1 meeting per month, and I thought that would be an ideal time as well.
I think for right now, what we're going to do is find out Dr. Tia's availability and other things, and some more information about the numbers.
But I think, to Mike's thing too, we need to maybe see what Barb Tomey's resume is, and look at her
Qualifications are.
also.
I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else on this right now? Okay, item 4 is reception of visitors. I don't see any visitors that aren't affiliated with the district. So going once, going twice, reception of the visitors is concluded. Anything else to come before the board, or we have a motion?
A couple things, Mr. White. First, we were notified this afternoon that the village council hearing about the vacation of Prince Street is not tomorrow, it's next Tuesday.
Oh.
At 7 p.m., correct, Marty?
Correct.
Which is fine with me, because not only have to go to the concert at North, I don't have to go to the concert, then go to the village council meeting.
That's right.
So that works well for my schedule.
That's the 13th?
That's the 13th, Tuesday. At present, the plan still looks like a shorter board meeting on the 12th than we've had in a while. I'm still working on that. There is a possibility, though, of a closed session that would be probably before, because the possibility of an expulsion hearing that would occur this week. We hope that doesn't occur, but there is a possibility, as you know, from the Friday mailing, that it
Right.
could occur.
And that is at North.
North.
Okay, anything else, Dr. McDonald?
That's it.
Unless somebody has any business, I would invite a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Savage moves.
Second.
Let's fight over it.
Mr. Davenport.
Mr. Davenport.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you.